back to NBA The Block Party, Episode 7. I am joined with the one and only King Wells. How's it going, my dude?
Always good, man. So,
Just getting excited for the NBA play-in, NBA playoffs. We got a bunch of stuff coming up in terms of that. But next 2 days are kind of the last little stretch of the season here. We got a few games tonight. I wanted to start with Toronto. Because they have actually moved up from the sixth seed to the fifth seed, and the playoff opponent now has changed up. We are now looking like we could possibly be playing Philadelphia in the first round. So I'm curious on your thoughts on this, as kind of our Raptors specialist connoisseur, and also just like curious if you think that Embiid and Harden, like how that matches up with Toronto's defense, and how you think Toronto's offense can hopefully overcome Philadelphia's defense. But yeah, I'm curious on your thoughts on this series and if we end up locking this in, what that looks like.
yeah, man, I think there's a couple important things. I mean, like number one is Joel Embiid. I'm not super confident going up against Joel Embiid, but having said that, last game we looked pretty good against him, and we were still missing OG and Freddie VanVleet. So, I mean, I think we have a pretty good chance with anybody we go up against, honestly. And Philly doesn't have the best, record coming into Toronto, so that's kind of in our favor. It sounds like Matisse Thybulle might not be able to play if they play the Raptors, and that's pretty big for a guy like Gary Trent Jr. and Freddie VanVleet. So that could open it up for them. That could be a difference maker in that series. The big thing is James Harden and Joel Embiid. I think James Harden has shown that this is going to be Joel Embiid's team going forward. He doesn't look like he's trying to take over or become the MVP or anything like that, which is probably the right call. I'm all right with handling. I'm pretty confident we can handle James Harden. Joel Embiid, if he goes to that second gear, is really tough for us to take care of just because of the bodies that we have. We just don't have that big guy that can handle Embiid. It's just that he hasn't really done that against us, consistently anyway. So I think it'd be an interesting series. I really do like our chances, but I think it would come down to whether Embiid can take over or not.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't agree more. I think Embiid's kind of the difference maker, especially on offense. Like if he can actually just keep penetrating down low, take over versus Toronto's bigs. I agree with you. Like we don't really have someone that can guard him like successfully. Like we're missing our Marc Gasol or a piece that can hang with a guy like that. So it's going to be interesting. We have a lot of obviously really good defenders on this team. Our perimeter defense is scary, but can we bang down low with Embiid? That's the question, right? Do you think we could see? It's kind of an interesting scenario here, but like you mentioned, Harden is going to probably take a backseat to Embiid in order for them to get this done. Could you see a world in which Harden just absolutely goes bananas in this first round? Because like here's the thing, I agree with you. Like we've definitely seen a toned back Harden. We've definitely not seen a Harden, on Houston or even kind of early Brooklyn when he first got there, making that MVP push, but James Harden can essentially step back into a point guard role. You still have other, scary weapons. Like defensively, you got guys like Matisse Thybulle, right? That's kind of an interesting little piece for them defensively. Tyrese Maxey is a very, very quick, kind of hard to stay in front of, quick first step point guard, I guess, at this point. But I assume James Harden will be running majority of that kind of point guard role, or at least facilitating. So in the event that Harden goes nuclear, and it's looking more like Harden starts controlling the series, because anything can happen in the playoffs. As much as we want to say James Harden didn't get it done, anything can essentially happen in the playoffs, right? New heroes are born. People can fizzle out. So what's your thoughts on if Harden starts going nuclear? Like, do you think we just kind of go to like a double team scenario where we just don't let him touch the ball? Can we afford to do that with Embiid? Is that something that you think we need to think through?
I mean, that's kind of the way the Raptors play anyway, so I'm not really worried about that. I mean, any attack on the perimeter, Raptors have shown all year that they can handle it.
Yeah.
Between Pascal, Barnes, and OG, just switch everything and double when you have to. And the guys you're doubling with is like Freddie and Gary Trent Jr., who've been leading the lead in deflections and steals all year. I'm not. If the question is, would I rather face a team that's led by a Harden or led by an Embiid at their best, I would probably right now rather face the Harden team. I feel a lot more confident
Yeah,
taking them on.
especially
I'm not worried about that.
especially because he's a perimeter player, and that's kind of our strength on defense, right? So yeah, okay, cool. I want to get into. We can come back to Toronto Philly in a bit if that's. It's looking like what's the probability of that changing? Like I don't really know because there's 2 days left, right? But I don't really know in terms of seeding if that could change. I guess if Philly wins one more game, they're tied with Boston essentially. So I guess anything could happen if Boston is playing. I don't think they play today, but they might play tomorrow. So we'll have to see what happens there. I don't really know the record between Philly and Boston this year to determine that, but if they tie at 50 and 31. Right now, the other matchups we're looking at in the East, so the other one in kind of the middle chunk here, avoiding the play-in, slotting into Milwaukee and Miami. We have Boston and Chicago, so that's kind of an interesting one. What's your thoughts on that series? I don't know if you saw the other night, Charlotte beat the Bulls. Or was this yesterday, maybe?
Yeah.
When I say the other night,
they beat them pretty handily.
Yeah, and LaMelo went absolutely crazy, like nuclear. And we got to remember, LaMelo is in that play-in spot to then come back around to play, which would be Milwaukee essentially, if they can get past Brooklyn and Cleveland, right? With the way the plan's looking now. So, what's your thoughts on the Chicago-Boston series? Because that's kind of two interesting teams. You obviously got Boston that kind of overachieved here at the end, or I wouldn't say overachieved, but did a little bit better. And you have Chicago that started out really hot and then kind of tailed off. So, what's your thoughts on that series, Chicago-Boston?
Yeah, I would say Boston has underachieved, and Chicago has overachieved.
Sure.
I think Chicago's injuries are kind of catching up to them now too. They really do need Lonzo Ball.
He's out for I think he's out for the rest of the year. They're saying.
That's what I'm saying. So that's a really tough series for Chicago. I don't see them going very far. Sorry to say. I love DeMar.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so you think Boston takes that? Tatum and Brown?
Yeah.
And, Smart, obviously a Horford. Now, one injury to mention with Boston that I kind of just came to my attention. Robert Williams, I believe, is out for, I don't know if it's the rest of the year, but
I don't think it's the rest of the year. I think he'll be back.
Yeah, because it was a torn meniscus, so you don't really want to rush that back. But does that, the thing with that injury, in my opinion, is now they can slot in Horford to playoff minutes. So I'm not too worried about it. Horford's very, very capable, and we've seen Horford go pretty crazy in the playoffs on Boston with these two guys. It's not like he went crazy on Boston with a whole other team. It was a pretty similar team. Just that trio of Brown, Tatum, and Horford. So that's going to be interesting, man, seeing that in the playoffs, because that team, when wasn't it Jason Tatum's rookie year or second year, they went to the conference finals versus LeBron. So interesting stuff there to keep an eye on. Like how far can Boston push this year? That's going to be something to keep an eye on. Now let's talk about the play-in games. Charlotte, Atlanta. You're still leaning Charlotte. I think you said Charlotte last week, and I know you said Charlotte last week because I kind of made a point of what about Trae Young in the playoffs? So you still think Charlotte's obviously looked unreal, wiping Chicago clean last night. You think Charlotte wins that play-in game versus Atlanta still? There's tied record 42-39.
That's tough, but yeah, I'll stick with my guns. Yeah.
Charlotte, cool. And then this one's really interesting to me, man. I'm excited for this game if this ends up happening in the play-in. Brooklyn, Cleveland. I think Brooklyn takes that, but Cleveland.
I think pretty easily too.
I don't know about pretty easily. Like if Jared Allen can come back here, because he's I hearing like he might be coming back kind of soon. I don't know, man. I just love what I've seen from Darius Garland this year and that team. Mobley, Kevin Love's been a resurgence, and Lauri Markkanen's looked really nice for them too. And I don't know, that they're very big, a lot of big bodies in that front court. So
they're interesting, and they definitely surprised a lot of people this year. But Kevin Durant
and Kyrie
in the playoffs is a different animal, and
yeah, it's true.
I just don't see that. I just don't see them overcoming that. Again, anything can happen in the NBA. It would be amazing. It would be a fun story.
Yeah.
But my money's on the Nets for sure.
Yeah. That's probably where most people's money would go. But I don't know about taking it easily. I think it'd be closer than people think. But I think the Nets would pull away probably in the fourth and then they could make it a 20-point game in a matter of minutes, right? That's the thing with Kevin Durant and Kyrie. If Brooklyn wins that game, so you know what's kind of interesting here?
Tell me.
Food for thought. If Brooklyn wins the Cleveland game, the play-in game, the first one, they would automatically go play. The 7 seed slides down to play Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
If Brooklyn loses that game versus Cleveland, okay, they then go to play the loser of Charlotte-Atlanta, or the winner of Charlotte-Atlanta, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would go play 8 seed versus 1 seed Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of interesting. Would you rather play Miami in the first round or Milwaukee if you're the Brooklyn Nets?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'd rather play Miami, but it's really, really tight. I don't really have an answer for that. Like, the only reason I'm kind of leaning Miami is because the Bucks are defending champs, so I'm giving them that respect.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I'd probably rather play Miami. Do you think is that strategically a bad idea to essentially lose the play-in game, or like not play your starters in that first play-in game, then strategically play the the winner of Atlanta Charlotte, confidently thinking you can take them, and then trying to play Miami and essentially just change your playoff narrative, like not playing the Bucks in the first round, avoiding them. Now, I guess the argument is you're going to have to play the Bucks at some point, right? If they're that good and they make it through. So, but like, could you see Brooklyn resting players in that first play-in game, or is that too risky to essentially put yourself in a 1-game sudden death situation like that again?
I would say that there's not enough difference between the Heat and the Bucks and what would or wouldn't happen for that to make a lot of sense and taking a risk like that. I mean, like, I could see them do it if there was if there was one of those teams that you'd really much rather avoid.
I don't know if I agree with that though. I think the Bucks I would much rather play the Heat. Like, I think Giannis is definitely a little bit harder to overcome than Jimmy Butler. You know what I mean? Like, and the Bucks are
it's Jimmy, it's Kyle Lowry, it's PJ Tucker, it's Bam Adebayo, it's Eric Spoelstra as a coach, and Tyler Hero, who's been flamethrower off the bench. So
sure, I mean, yeah, I know. I'm not trying to discount Miami, but it's like also Milwaukee's a deep team as well. Middleton, Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez has been catching fire lately. They're deep, like into their bench rotation even too. So I mean, I agree with you. It's not like Miami's a cakewalk. But I'm just saying, for the reasons of Giannis Antetokounmpo being the Finals MVP and like looking like an MVP candidate, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, taking a step forward, his shots looking better this year. I don't know if that's necessary. Is it worth the risk to essentially lose the game and then go try to play Atlanta Charlotte to then seed into Miami? Like, is that a plausible situation? Like, I don't know if a team can actually justify doing that.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it would be worth the risk in any scenario. There's just not enough difference between the two teams for me.
Okay, fair.
Because whatever happens, you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna have to play them anyways.
True.
And I mean, like, you're gonna have to play other teams too. Like the Celtics are a team in there I wouldn't really want to play either. So
sure.
I mean, the East is pretty tough at the top, so it's gonna be tough no matter who they're gonna play. And injuries can happen and random stuff can happen. It's just for sure. I just don't like that idea at all.
Yeah, no, I feel you. It's caught my eye because it's like, obviously when you look at the play-in tournament in the bracket, you kind of go, like, is this route a better route? Like, strategically, but I agree with you. And the other thing that you could argue is that if you play Milwaukee in the first round, to a sense, you're putting all the pressure on Milwaukee in that first round, right? So to play a team like Brooklyn, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, right? Like, that ain't no cakewalk. So yeah, no, I agree with you. I just thought, food for thought, like, it's an interesting to look at this kind of pattern here. All right, let's move to the West because we've touched on all the teams in the East. Let's start with our kind of middle chunk, and then we'll move into the play-in versus the 1-2 seeds. So we'll start with first series, which is looking like Dallas, Utah. Luka's gone nuclear. again, end of the season. What's new? And he probably will continue to go nuclear into the playoffs. He's actually, I believe, got
He
his
definitely will.
16th technical last game, so he's not going to be eligible to play in the last game of the season. But I don't think he probably would have anyways. I don't think their seeding is really too much in danger. Although they are very close to the Warriors at 51-30, 51-29. So that would essentially determine if they play, I don't know, I guess Utah or Denver. But right now it's looking like Utah. So my question to you is Utah, Dallas. What's your prediction on that series? I assume you're thinking Luka takes it, but what's your prediction on that, the length of that series?
I think it'd be a long series. I don't think it's going to be short. I also think Donovan Mitchell is really going to show up again because he does it every year in the playoffs. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So
and
I
he's
think
had
that,
a crazy year. He's had a crazy year.
Yeah, I think that would be a really really fun series. I still give it to the Mavs, but it's not super. It's not like they're running away with it in my mind.
Sure. That's like one of the kind of the most underappreciated stars in the league is Donovan Mitchell. And when he came into the league, like he had a great rookie year. Was it Ben Simmons he was competing with? I think it was for Rookie of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. But Mitchell has just been a phenomenal player, and his growth, he gets better every single year. You know what I mean? And that's something that's really fun to watch. He obviously came into the league, caught it kind of by storm because he was a later pick. But he
13th,
really,
I think.
yeah, and he is just like so phenomenal to watch. And like starting was I guess in the bubble for him when he kind of started to make noise in the playoffs. Maybe even before that, but the bubble was kind of when he really showed up versus Jamal Murray in that first round. I can still remember it pretty distinctively. And he's a great player to watch, man. But yeah, so like, what would your prediction on that series? Would you say 6 games? Would you say
Yeah, 6 or 7.
6 or 7 games? Cool. And then let's move down to Warriors Denver. I'm curious on your thoughts on that series. Obviously, Steph Curry has been ruled out for the season, but he'll probably come back into the playoffs. And like, he's not really the kind of guy who tends to miss a beat. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Wiseman. I don't know what's going on with that because they.
I don't think he's playing.
He's ruled out for the season, but like he's playing in G League games, so I'm just confused with that.
It'd be nice for the Warriors, but I don't see it. I don't see it. I mean, they really could have used him as a it's just some type of energy coming up, something new, but it's too bad. I thought he was going to energize them towards the end of the year. I thought he was going to be a nice story.
And what's your thoughts on Denver headband Joker? Don't know if you saw that, but putting up absolutely incredible numbers. Once again, looking like the MVP.
I really like the Warriors. The Warriors and the Mavs were kind of my picks in the West, but I gotta say, like with the way that Draymond Green seems to be not quite himself. If he can't get back to his level, I'm doubting them a little bit, and the Nuggets on the other side, Jokic is just playing out of his mind, and
he's wild.
It's tough. It's tough. This is a tough one. This would be a tough series. I'm not sure which way to go here. Like I'm gonna probably stick with my guns because I've been saying Warriors all year, but I don't feel great about it, honestly.
Interesting. And we don't really know like the deal with Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray at this given point. Obviously, if they could come back for playoffs, it would be huge. My gut says they won't be.
Mm-hmm. I don't expect them to. I kind of do all this assuming they're not coming back.
Now, why? Like, what was with the rambling of the coach saying that they're on good pace to return at some point during the season? Like, did you see that? Or I don't know who it was in management that said that, but that definitely came up at some point. So
I don't remember. I mean, I kind of remember something like that with Michael Porter Jr., but I don't really remember that with Jamal Murray.
Yeah, he bundled them together, and he actually said like both of them in the same sentence. So, and why isn't Jamal Murray back yet? Like, do you think it could have been a setback? Because we haven't heard much about it, but usually don't players return from an ACL like around kind of end of the year trail there?
Yeah, but he also did it in the playoffs, didn't he?
I don't think
so. Like at the end of the year.
Near the end of the year, but even then, like Markelle Fultz, same kind of time frame I thought, and he's back. So that's like it's interesting. I don't know. It's just I'm not trying to put a critique on the guy for dealing with injury, but it's just it seems like time frame wise, like obviously I don't keep a calendar and a date of like when they got hurt and all this, but just piecing it together in my mind when it happened, I thought like he would have hit his timeline by now, but I don't know. That's hard to say. Obviously, if you get a guy like Jamal Murray back, that's an incredible boost, and then the Warriors are really probably not looking forward to that, right? But and even a guy like Michael Porter can be a difference maker in the playoffs. We saw him go crazy in the bubble, have a great year last season, not this year, obviously. But yeah, it's interesting. Something to keep an eye on with that series. And interestingly enough, you're saying it's no cakewalk without those guys. So getting that firepower. Now, I really like the way Denver plays, like their bench and Monte Morris and Will Barton, and like they play. And like Michael Malone as a coach, I think is one of those guys to me that every year I kind of gain a little bit more respect for. I didn't really like him at first, but I kind of find it harder to see flaw and like hate in what he's doing the more and more as it goes. But quickly before
he's another one of those Sacramento Kings misses. They had him as a coach and fired him after like 15 games or something.
That's crazy.
And then he went to Denver and he's showing out.
That's crazy. We should just change the name of this program to Sacramento Failures. No, I'm just kidding. I did actually wanted to mention some positive out of some stuff I've seen in Sacramento. Like hopefully going forward, try to be optimistic. Try to be optimistic. But let's move on to the play-in games that will then eventually determine who plays Phoenix or Memphis. We'll start with Phoenix's play-in possibility, which obviously the loser of the first play-in game will then go to play and could play Phoenix ultimately. But first play-in game up top here, New Orleans Pelicans, San Antonio Spurs. My money would be on the Pelicans because I love what I'm seeing from CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram as like a new dynamic kind of duo. Been really fun.
Looking good.
Yeah, been really fun to watch them last few weeks. CJ, man, I've always had so much respect for CJ, and I think, like we talked about this last week, but the guy is a bucket getter. He can just go get any type of bucket any way he wants it, and he's pretty hard to stop. And Ingram is the same way, man, honestly. Both of these guys can pull up from the mid-range, hit the three. I love their chemistry together. Now, from what I've heard, if you just kind of look at, NBA reports, things of that nature, Zion Williamson has been running full contact practices with the team. I don't know if the plan is to bring him back in the playoffs. My guess would be kind of start him fresh next year. But if they got deep enough, like somehow, some way, could Zion return for this team? Is that a possibility, do you think? And if not, obviously we still have the CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram duo. How far can that go this year with this team? JV obviously being thrown in the mix there. You have other pieces, but curious, those two being the main standouts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's going to take you far in the playoffs, and a lot of that is because it is still their first year getting together and all that. I want to mention the rookie there. Is it Herb Jones?
Herb Jones, like yeah, Herb Jones.
He's really been standing out to me.
Defensively,
what a find for them.
Yeah.
So that he's been really great. I still don't know if I would trust them to go deep in the playoffs. I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch, and I think they're finally coming up on some of that potential that people have been talking about all year, even though Zion never came back. And then on that other note, next year, I agree with you. I would keep Zion out until next year. But next year with Zion in, this team all of a sudden is very, very interesting. And for all the kind of hate that Griff, the GM, got at the start of the year, that CJ McCollum trade just might have saved his job.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think that was a great move, such a smart move, and it gave them exactly what they needed. And CJ, the fact that he's content, happy there, in his role, like you can tell he's coming in as like a leader, and he feels like now he's leading a team where he was definitely an established leader on Portland with Dame, right? But Dame felt like the overall leader of that team. Now it does feel like CJ is kind of the leader of this team. Which is really cool to see at this point of his career, giving him that chance to kind of lead young players and be kind of the guy they look to, right? Who takes the last shot. Obviously Ingram is capable of hitting big shots. We saw Ingram hit a lot of big shots in the fourth quarter and near the end of games this year. And I don't know, that's exciting to me. Having two guys can go get you that. A clutch bucket. They're a fun team to watch. And I think they beat the Spurs in that game. We then have Minnesota Clippers. This one's kind of interesting. I really just love what I saw from Cat. And not only that, you got to add Anthony Edwards into this picture. The other night had a career high. I think it was 49, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that. But anyways, Ant's looking really, really good as of late. Cat, to me, I think is just incredible offensively and defensively. He's taken a step up this year, so I'm pretty excited for them, and I would hope to see them kind of push to play Memphis in that first round, because I think that's interesting kind of series. But obviously, if they don't, they could then go play New Orleans to then ultimately go play Phoenix. What's your thoughts on the Clippers, man? Like, Clippers obviously don't want to leave them untouched. I don't think Kawhi's coming back this season or this playoffs, but obviously Paul George has looked really good, and the Clippers as a team, Reggie Jackson, and having fundamentally just like pieces that can coexist. It's very interesting. So, what's your thoughts on that play-in game? I think last week you said it stayed the same, and you said Clippers, right?
Yep.
Cool. And you're still sticking with, you think Clippers take that
Yeah,
first game?
I would like to. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would stick with the Clippers.
Cool. And then obviously, if they win, they would then go to play Memphis in that first round, which is kind of an interesting series. Or it would be essentially Minnesota if they win, and then the loser would then go to play New Orleans or San Antonio, winner of that game. So a lot to keep an eye on. How are you feeling about Phoenix play? Okay, let me put it this way. Is there any team in that play-in pool that Phoenix is scared of? Because when I look at it, I kind of say no chance.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think Phoenix is really scared of anyone there. And like obviously,
nor should they be.
Yeah, unreal. Like in terms of just repeating success, 64-17. Like what a great record. It's their best Suns franchise record of all time, I believe, right?
Must be, yeah.
I think they got that the other night. So pretty crazy, and pretty excited to see how they do in the playoffs, because they're built for the playoffs, it looks like, and they're already in playoff mode, it looks like. So really fun team to watch, really scary team to play against. Like, I don't think I'd want to play Phoenix in the playoffs. But I mean, what's your thoughts on Phoenix? Because like we always have to give them credit here. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges. What's your thoughts, man, on just what you see from Phoenix having the depth in like campaign and Tyler Johnson, and just like I think a really solid, well glued team, and you gotta love their coach, Monty Williams.
Yeah.
Monty Williams, yeah. So you gotta love what he's done, and just like his like approach last year into the playoffs, and just like kind of repeating that and staying strong. And obviously Chris Paul dealing with injury, still winning games. Chris Paul coming back in, looking even scarier. Like it's almost like they keep their momentum going and keep building. And when they experience something like that, they have the depth to, overcome it and obviously achieve really, really good things, sitting at 64-17. So how deep does Phoenix go into the playoffs this season with how the West is looking out? Do you think
I think they're going to go to the West Finals.
Yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm.
And who would your money be on them meeting in the West Finals?
Dallas.
Ooh, I like it. And Dallas, Phoenix.
If that works out, if they don't play them before, but I think it works out.
Interesting. Cool. Does that? Yeah, I think it would. Unless it was the Warriors, but then the Warriors and Mavericks would probably have to play each other, right? So yeah. Anyway, what's your thoughts? So you think Dallas, Phoenix, that could be a 6-7 game series?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, I think whoever plays the Suns in any round, they're in for a really tough matchup. The Suns have been incredible all year. They don't really have a lot of holes. There's not a lot of things you can nitpick about them. They have excellent leadership on the bench and on the floor. Devin Booker's coming into his own, consistently. He's been doing that for a while. Mikal Bridges is looking great. DeAndre Ayton still has another level he can get to. And they have a lot of role players too. So like they're a really nicely built team. Like I said, not a lot of holes. They're going to be really tough. They could go all the way. They definitely could. There's nothing, nothing really stopping them there, except for themselves and maybe a superstar or two. They're going to be tough. They're not my pick, but I wouldn't shame you if you said they were yours.
Interesting. Yeah. So okay, let's predict the NBA championship right now. Who does your gut tell you is winning it this year? And you can, if you want, we can go East and West. But
Hmm.
I have my established East, and I think I have my established West too. Um, and it's oddly enough, it is finally my West team that I would say wins it this year would be Phoenix.
Okay.
I know it's the obvious choice, but I think they have enough firepower to get through any of these teams, including Golden State. Now, my runner-up would probably be the Warriors. I still believe in the Warriors. I think it's going to
Hmm.
be very interesting to see what happens when Steph comes back and once they get into playoff mode. So, as much as I want to say Phoenix, it's a toss-up between Phoenix and Golden State. My gut kind of says just with the ambitions of Chris Paul and like getting so close and getting that taste for it, being in the finals, I think he has what it takes to kind of push them to a new level and have that like edge of just like wanting it more. Where the Warriors have been champions, they know what championship feels like. Now that could obviously play to their benefit, but I just think Phoenix has that drive and that push to do it. Now in the East, I think Brooklyn could definitely take it. Obviously, you got to probably say Brooklyn, Milwaukee are the two teams, but obviously Miami could be considered in there. I don't think Miami has what it takes to get it done versus Brooklyn or Milwaukee. As much as I love Kyle Lowry, I think those teams could take Miami, essentially, is what I'm saying. But my prediction, I guess I'll go with a kind of my odd man out here, but I would say that Brooklyn Nets, as much as like how much are they an odd man out, I think it's going to be really interesting to see if Ben Simmons can kind of insert himself back into the lineup for playoffs, what that looks like. I don't really know what the deal with that is, his back injury, leg injury, whatever this is that's really going on. But I think if you add a defensive player like Ben Simmons to that rotation, it definitely becomes a little bit scarier for teams. And I think that could happen, given kind of the injury he's dealing with and him warming up with the team and not really, not being ruled out for the rest of the season. Essentially, they're saying they want to bring him back for the playoffs. So I think that's a kind of interesting X factor that we haven't really even gotten a taste of yet.
Hmm.
That could be enough, throw Ben Simmons on a guy like Giannis and just, try to slow him down, whatever it is. Give Kevin Durant a break and let him just and Kyrie dominate on offense. Ben Simmons is also a very capable passer, defender, rebounder. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think Brooklyn's kind of my team in the East that my gut's saying. And then obviously my second would probably be Milwaukee doing the repeat. But that'd be my teams.
Cool.
Uh,
So you want me to name two in the East, two in the
yeah, do
West?
do two in the East, like your first and kind of your runner up, and then same thing with the West.
Um, well, my East are the same. They've been the same all year. It's Milwaukee and Brooklyn. And then the West, I'll go with the same. I've been saying all year too, and it's the Warriors and the Mavs.
Cool. Yeah, nice. So
And
the
the Warriors, it depends on.
Draymond.
For me, it really depends on Draymond Green, like overall health. If they can get to a level where everybody's healthy and clicking,
Yeah.
they're going to be a tough out, and they're probably my pick. I just right now I'm not feeling really confident about that, so I'm probably leaning a little bit more for the Luka Magic. And then in the East, Brooklyn is really just there because of Kevin Durant for me. That's the only
Fair.
reason that I'm naming them. But I think I'm a little bit more confident with Milwaukee than I am with Brooklyn overall. It is close, but I think I'm feeling what Milwaukee's done and how they've gone about it for the last couple of years. So a little bit more with Milwaukee than Brooklyn.
Cool. So that covers basically the play and playoffs. I wanted to start with that. It's obviously we had a bit of change up, so we had to touch on that, see kind of where we're sitting with how teams look. Now for this kind of second half of the segment, I want to move to more off-season, what you think teams that are obviously out of this scope could be doing. So I'm actually going to go right to standings here, and now we can kind of talk about some of those teams that might be forgotten about. Sigh, the Lakers. But
I don't think the Lakers will ever be forgotten.
no, but I'm just saying in terms of like who we are talking about right now. Obviously, we're not even mentioning them because they're out of the play-in. But there has been some kind of news, and we can start with the Lakers because I think that's probably the most interesting team in terms of off-season, what that's looking like, what could happen. LeBron James essentially is not going to play in enough games to get that scoring title. What do you think of his decision to do that? Bow out of it? Do you think it was noble? Do you think it was because he was worried he wouldn't get it and essentially come second to Embiid? Do you think it's just like, what's the point of playing and risking further injury because we're out of the play-in? Probably a lot of things you could determine with the decision to do that, but I'm curious on your thoughts on the Lakers in the offseason, what that's looking like. There was a rumor about a possible Westbrook to Charlotte move that could happen with that 1-year deal left. You mentioned it last week, that 2-year contract, huge salary, becomes a little bit easier to trade when there's only 1 year left on the deal. So what's the Lakers offseason looking like? What do you think we see going forward? Obviously, Anthony Davis has touched on a bit of the trade rumors with him included, but it's hard to obviously knock Davis when he's healthy. The question is, can he be healthy? What's the Lakers offseason looking like at this point? If you're the Lakers GM right now, I throw it right on your lap. What are you doing? What do you try to do here?
Well, number one is you try to trade Westbrook, but I don't know how. That might be a lot easier than I think it is, but it might be just as hard as everybody assumes it's going to be. So that one's tough. I mean, the nice thing about Russell Westbrook is that, like, even though everybody associated with the Lakers, it's not a good look this season how it happened. Like Russell Westbrook, he did what Russell Westbrook does. You know what I mean? He wasn't. It's not like he. I don't think the blame is solely on him. And I don't think that, like, people don't want him because they think that he's just. Well, maybe some people do, but I think for the most part, I think he still has some value as an NBA player. It's just that when you factor in the amount of money he's being paid at the age that he is, it's really hard to swallow, and especially with the NBA salary cap the way it is. So that's like the biggest hurdle, and really the domino. Like, if I would assume you can't do anything with that one, you're just gonna have to play it out, pay him. Maybe you can get rid of him at the deadline. Maybe and somebody bites there. It's not unlikely. But I think what will happen with the Lakers is they're going to re-up like they always do with some vets on minimum contracts. I think they'll get some nice ones, maybe a little bit nicer bunch this year than they did last year, maybe a little bit more shooting, and just kind of retool that way. They don't really have a lot of other options. Like, they can trade another pick by the time the draft comes around. But again, if you're keeping that Westbrook contract, that's really tough to move around.
And do you think the question of trading Davis is on the table, or do you think this is just kind of smoke?
Well, nobody's untradeable. Nobody's untradeable. But I think that it would look. No, even LeBron James, I would say, like, no, there's no untradeable contract in the NBA.
But do you think the Lakers would actually move LeBron James, or do you think it would be?
Well, if they did, it's because LeBron wants to go.
Right, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Like, if like, you think they would move him against his will, is what I'm saying. I don't think.
I think if there was a trade that came up that they couldn't say no to, yeah, but the odds of that happening are nil as well.
Right, but what would that trade have to be to get a guy like LeBron James? Because, LeBron's obviously said some stuff, and it's worth mentioning. He could move teams. I'm not saying that, but a trade for him, I just don't know if that would be the way. But what's LeBron's contract?
How else would he move?
Signing and new.
He's not a free agent.
I guess. Well, he could move essentially if he demands a trade, but I'm saying trading him against his will. Like, I just don't think the Lakers would trade him ever, unless he wanted to go. Like, that's. But I think that's kind of.
But it's not likely. But yeah. The important thing is here. Like, I think an important rule is there's nobody that's untradeable. I don't believe that, like, for reasons where you want to keep him or for reasons where nobody wants him, kind of thing. Like, people have said that about Russell Westbrook. I know it's the other end of the coin, but he's been traded twice now.
Yeah.
So I
think it's a little different comparing Westbrook to LeBron James, though. I think it would be similar to.
I'm not comparing them as players. I'm comparing them as, like, assets. You know what I mean? Like, for whatever reason, Russell Westbrook was said to be untradeable, right? And there was a lot of good reasons for that, but he's been traded.
Sure. I just think, like, a bit of a different level I have those guys on, even when Westbrook's in his prime. I don't think he's LeBron, like, level, right?
That's not what I'm saying.
But if you're you're saying retool with vets. Don't, like, obviously try to trade Westbrook, but is it plausible that Davis actually gets moved? And if you could see any team in the NBA taking a risk on Anthony Davis, who do you think it would be? It's obviously a hard question to answer, but in a scenario where there could actually be a move there, is there anything you could see that, you know what, that could actually happen? Or is it like that's all dictated by the Lakers? Like, I do agree. Like, I would put Davis in that category of not untradeable, but or yeah, or sorry, I would put Davis in that category. They could definitely trade him, and no player is safe. But I just don't know. Is there a spot where you could see that actually happening?
With Anthony Davis.
Yeah, with Anthony Davis.
Well, I mean, same thing. Like if they get an offer, then that makes sense. Then for sure, for sure, and any team in the league would do a trade that makes them better. You know what I mean? It's just after the year that they've had, Lakers would be trading from a position of less value.
Right.
So it's just tough to imagine.
Their stocks are down right now. They're trying to.
Exactly.
It's hard to trade, or it's like they'd have to sell and the stocks are down. But okay, so let's talk about some other teams then that are potentially off-season players. Anything interesting? Like you got to obviously consider the Knicks here a bit of a disappointment. But what do you think happens with New York? Julius Randle kind of demanding that he wants out potentially. Could the Knicks be suitors for Westbrook? Could the Knicks try to make a play? Just like obviously there's some bright spots. Like RJ Barrett's had a better year this year than he did last year and he's looked pretty good. He's still not perfect, in terms of
He looks pretty good.
being the guy that you'd want to run the team. But yeah, he definitely looks like he's taken a step up this year. You think it'd be smart to try to trade Randall while you still can and build around just RJ and your young guys? Obi Toppin's played a little bit better last few games. I'm trying to stay positive for them, but like what happens in New York? You're the Knicks GM right now.
I mean, I'm looking at their salaries right now. You're kind of locked in. It's hard to, if Julius Randle is on a big deal, wow, for a lot of years. So yeah. I mean, but he's not untradeable. I'm sure some people would go for him. It's just who would do it. That's tough to say. Without moving a lot of their guys, they really don't have a lot. They really don't have a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah. And
there's no nobody coming off big contract. I mean, what are they going to do with Mitchell Robinson? That's a big question.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to re-sign him, but with all their other contracts, that might be tough.
And what's Julius Randle's deal? Is it 4 years left or 3 years left?
I think it
might be 4 or maybe.
I think you're right.
So that's going to be hard to trade out of, and like who's taking that contract right now? Like I don't know. I agree with you. I think a lot of teams would be interested in adding him, but like for that price, I don't know if it's the play. Now, teams like Washington are in a bit of interesting spot. Like where do you see, or what do you see happening with Bradley Beal in the offseason?
I think he signed somewhere else. I don't know where, but I just as much as it's respectable how he's never thrown Washington under the bus and said he wants to leave or anything. Like I really do respect that, but at some point you got to make a decision for your career, and I just don't see him like winning a championship or coming close to it in Washington. I just don't see it, and so I'm kind of expecting him to sign somewhere else, maybe a sign and trade or something, because it'd be difficult to get his pick. But yeah, so I'm going to predict the sign and trade with Bradley Beal.
Cool. Now, call me crazy, but could this happen? Lakers somehow move the Westbrook and then sign Bradley Beal. Is it possible?
No, I don't think so, because I think even if they move Westbrook, they don't have enough cap to sign him outright. They would have to move Westbrook for Beal.
And is Washington opposed to that in a sign and trade to get young pieces back?
Define young pieces.
Taylor Horton-Tucker and a pick. Hey, the guy, Taylor Horton.
Sell, my friend.
Hey, in all fairness, Taylor Horton-Tucker dropped 40 the other night, and he hasn't really been given a chance in this rotation as much as he probably should have been. And we know what happens when Lakers trade young guys like that. They go bananas. Kuzma, Ingram, D'Lo. So I mean, hey man, you got to stay optimistic as a Lakers fan. I would love Beal in that rotation with LeBron and and AD. I think that's scary.
Everybody would love Beal in their rotation
for sure. But talk about where Beal could go and have a good chance to win. I think that's interesting, and he gets to move to LA, California.
You know what? If Lakers had more draft picks, I think they could make a run at the Damian Lillard
Oh
this
man,
summer.
don't get my hopes up like that. Don't get
No,
my
no,
hopes
if they
up.
had more draft picks, there's no way they have enough. But
Yeah.
like because if they could tie Russell Westbrook with like I don't know, like if they could do the trade, basically the picks they gave for Anthony Davis, if they could do that again,
Right. Yeah. So you're saying like
man, that would probably
a
I think
mountain of
Portland would
picks.
probably go for that.
A mountain of picks. Okay, so let's talk about Dame in Portland, man. Besides the Lakers, obviously being his number one location of choice, where do you think Dame could end up based on who has cap room, who has like tradable contracts? Like, could we see a big Denver trade if Denver can't get it done this year? Do
That's an
something
interesting one.
right to get Dame. Like, imagine pairing Dame and
If I
Jokic.
was Denver, I'd be trying to get off that MPJ contract.
Yeah, but maybe you could trade MPJ, uh, and some picks for Dame. Like make a little package that to kind of or maybe Jamal Murray. Like who knows? Like maybe you just try to go win now with Jokic, get a guy like Dame on board, because Dame and Jokic together would be a pretty scary combo, man. I think. Now defensively, you're going to need some work as a
Yeah.
team, but I mean Dame and Jokic offensively to me is a scary kind of 1-2 combo because you got a guy who can pull up and hit any game-winning shot in the playoffs. You got a guy like Jokic who's could be probably a 2-time MVP. We're not saying that in the next week or so. And I think together, the IQ of those players, the determination of those players, the heart of those players, the leadership of those players, there's a lot of really, really interesting little things there that I could see working. And I could see that being a really scary one, too. And on paper, I mean, like, what do you prefer, theoretically speaking? Embiid and Harden or Lillard and Jokic? Because I think I prefer Lillard and Jokic. Yeah, obviously, given a healthy Damian Lillard, but
Yeah, I think me too. I think me too. Um, but I'm not sold on Denver getting rid of Jamal Murray like that.
sure.
I don't know.
I mean, I think it could definitely happen. It's. I think the reason it's possible to picture a scenario that this trade could happen is because Jamal Murray is a very good asset. Obviously the injury we don't really know, but at the same time, I think that's a really good piece to kind of come back, get younger.
Oh, I think Portland would take that in a heartbeat. If you're offering Jamal Murray, like a healthy Jamal Murray and picks, like a good amount of picks or whatever it is,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think Portland says no to that.
And I could, man, I don't know. I think also on the flip side, getting a guy like Dame could be very interesting for a team like Denver, man. I don't know. Like, look how good they are without Jamal Murray in this rotation. Imagine you add Damian Lillard to this rotation. Like,
Hmm.
it's interesting, kind of food for thought. Now, one of the rumors for the Lakers' new head coach, because I think the report is that Vogel's probably going to get fired here, is Quinn Snyder. What's your thoughts on that? We talked about it a little bit last week. Quinn's been pretty consistent in Utah and seems like he's pretty content there.
I think that he would go. I don't know what his contract situation is. I didn't realize it. Maybe if his contract's up, I mean, it'd be hard to say no to the Lakers, right? I'm sure they're going to pay him more money.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, I don't know that the Lakers should be. You know, I get that they don't really have much more else to do to change, but
It's not really Vogel.
well, first of all, it's not really Vogel that's the problem. I don't think anyway. Like he wouldn't be in my first pick for a head coach anyways, but I don't think he's a bad coach. But also like, I think if you did that, and I'm not saying like don't do it, right? But I think if you did that, it puts a certain level of pressure on Quinn Snyder that doesn't really make sense either. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't want to make Frank Vogel a scapegoat too. He won a title with this.
I think he's already been being the scapegoat.
Yeah.
Like,
Now, mind you, like some of the rotations I question, like, and it's obviously hard for me to sit back here and not be at practice every day, seeing how these guys run and perform, and then be like, why aren't you playing Taylor Horton-Tucker? Why aren't you playing Trevor Ariza? Why aren't you playing Wayne Ellington? But obviously when you're there and you're practicing and you're running with a group of guys, you're gonna go with what you're seeing in practices, scrimmages, with what LeBron's saying to you and what Davis is saying to you and what management said. There's so many factors in your ear that I can't understand or even amount to, understand. But I still have my gripes with some of the rotation and how it's ran and how he uses LeBron when he does, and like I don't know. I think a guy like Quinn Snyder could help things. So I don't want to say that it's not any blame on Vogel here, but I don't want to make Vogel any type of scapegoat, especially after winning a championship with his team, because I think it falls more on the players and like the health of Davis and things like that. That's not really fair to put on Vogel. Like Davis staying healthy has nothing to do with Frank Vogel, right? And at the end of
Yeah,
the
and I think
day,
them getting Russell Westbrook has nothing to do with Vogel either.
sure, there you go. And yeah, man. So it's kind
And
of
another thing, hold on, another thing too is if they're going to go ahead and fire Vogel, they've got a really good I really like David Fizdale. I didn't realize he was
this
on
is a
their bench
coach.
too.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't mind him getting another shot either.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
while we're at it.
yeah. Very true. Very true. He was a very consistent coach. It was Memphis where he coached mostly, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean he's from I think the Miami Heat, Eric Spoelstra staff, but he went to Memphis, got a head coach job. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm with you there, man. Like I think that's an interesting one to slot in possibly, but it's going to be interesting. I don't want to come back to the Lakers, but obviously they're coming up here in trade talk. Is there any other teams that are like free agents that I'm missing that you could see kind of making a move, or any free agents that are leaving? I think we touched on most of the big ones.
Well, the big ones is Kyrie in Brooklyn.
Oh, true. Which I don't think he'll leave. My
Is
guess,
James
but
Harden? James Harden is technically a free agent, right? Or did they give him an extension?
I thought they gave him an extension, but maybe I'm wrong. So those two, I see both those two staying put. I don't see them going anywhere and being any happier than where they are now. But
I think so too. Except Kyrie is such a wild card. You never
Kyrie is
know.
such a wild card, but I think it's Durant is the reason. Like he's gonna stay because of Durant. It's that I think those two really believe they can win a title together, and I think they have some pretty big egos where they're like, we said we're gonna win a title together, me and you, like, we're gonna win a title together, and they're all like, we don't need James, we don't need James. I was
I'm
like,
okay with that. I'm all right with that.
which is like, put your money where your mouth is, man, and they're more than capable together. So,
We'll
um,
see.
I want to talk about some other young teams, rookie of the year maybe. We haven't really got into that. Kind of our final awards we can end and wrap on here, but rookie of the year, man. Am I crazy to say like Mobley shouldn't be in the one slot anymore? Like I honestly I saw a statistic the other day that any player that's averaged 15 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Okay,
Mhm.
Scotty Barnes is in that tier, just so you know. And I'm sure you know this, but just for our audience so they know. They've won rookie of the year every single time. And for
Right.
some reason, Scotty Barnes is still projected third, I believe, in the rookie of the year standings, behind Mobley and Cade, which I just can't agree with. Like from what I've watched a lot of these rookies. I tend to watch rookies a lot with League Pass. That's like one of my favorite things about it. See, how they come into the league, what they can do. Last year, I watched a ton of LaMelo, a ton of Anthony Edwards, a ton of Tyrese Halliburton. This year, I've been watching a ton of of these new guys, and like I've had so much fun watching Jalen Green the last few weeks blossom into like, okay, wow, this is what people saw in Jalen Green. This is this is what we can expect. Like electric, bro. Like unreal athleticism, the ability to hit huge, big, deep threes. Like I love the way he plays, and it's fun to
Oh, he
watch
had a
him
block on
blossom.
Utah Watanabe last night. Just
I saw it. I
unbelievable.
saw it, and it's like he's doing like it's pretty crazy. With as much as Jalen Green started slow, whatever, and he's not even close to being in the rookie of the year standings, but like he's the kind of guy where you're seeing it now these last few weeks where you're like, oh damn, okay, the hype. I can see what the hype's about. Like he's
Oh
got
yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
freakish jaw athleticism ability, and like he's just cool, man. He's a cool player to watch, fun player to watch. I'm excited to see what he does next year, man. I really am. I think he could just have an explosive second year from what I'm seeing now. Cade is like so poised, and I think he'll have take a leap forward. I think it's not going to be. I could see, I guess, for the rookies, my predictions, but next season, here's kind of what I'm thinking. Jalen Green is going to come out hot and just be explosive, and it's going to be all the talk on Jalen Green is going to kind of be where everyone's head's at. I think Cade is just going to continually get better every single year, kind of slower steps that he takes, but I think you'll see a really nice, wow, this guy it's going to just come at a certain time, year 4 or 5, like, okay, Cade's really fucking good here. And I think it's going to be kind of a slower development, but I think it's going to be very steady and like a very good pace. And he's just such a poised player that you can just see him evolving at that rate. Where Jalen Green, I can just see him coming on the map strong next year, boom, making an impact, and everyone's hype will be on Jalen Green. But then Scotty, I kind of have him in the middle of that. And I think I have Mobley kind of in the middle of that too, where I think they're going to slowly get better every single year. but you might see those two guys take a big step forward
I
next
think
year.
I think
as well.
Scotty's going to be All-Star next year.
Yeah, there you go. So, like, do you kind of agree with how I'm viewing the rookie trajectory here from what we're seeing? Maybe touch on Mo because we didn't really get on that, but and Mobley's gonna have a chance to play in the play in here. We might get some like something interesting out of him, but Scotty, you think like to me, I see a mix of like the Jalen Green explosiveness that's gonna come on next year and the Cade consistency. Like he's kind of like a blend of those two. He's his own unique thing, own unique player, but just in terms of their development, how I see it going forward, like you think you could think he could be an All-Star next season, and
Yeah.
what's what do you think give me a Scotty Barnes stat line next year? Obviously the 15, 7, and 3.
I think he's going to be doing close to what Pascal's doing this year. Just maybe a little less assists and a little more rebounds and maybe a little less scoring. But I think he's going to be hovering around 20, 10, and 5, but it's going to be like maybe 18,
Ridiculous.
9, and 3 or something like that, But like that's what I expect from Scotty Barnes now, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous.
I think he's going to have a fantastic year next year.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. 20, 10, and 5. That's and he can do that, man. He can do that. He's doing 15, 7, and 3. Like
it's not far off from what he's doing now.
Not even far off from what he's doing now. And yeah, he's gonna be on my kind of like players I want to draft next season. I had the privilege.
He's a baby honest, man. I'm telling you,
He's
a baby honest right now.
He is, and he has that X factor of like leadership, grit, heart, everything, competitiveness, everything you want from a young guy. He is like just been so fun to watch this year, man. And like honestly, let's go back a year ago or like a little less than a year ago, but when we go to NBA draft day and you're how like pat you on the back, man, because I remember you saying is I want Scotty Barnes, bro. I want Scotty Barnes, bro. I want Scotty Barnes, bro. And it's like, damn, that shit came right to fruition and manifestation at its finest. But this kid's the real deal, and shout out to you for
special, man. He's better than like I was a big fan before we drafted him for sure. But I'm not going to go and say that I thought he would be what he is today. Like, no. When it was Scotty Barnes, I was thinking like we could maybe find like a 6'8" version of Andre Iguodala. You know what I mean? Which is not a bad comparison, and that's not a bad player. But he's just shot that out of the water. You know what I mean? It's not even for me to say I think he's going to be All-Star next year is crazy because I'm usually pretty. I try to keep my expectations pretty conservative, right? But the guy is just. How can you not be excited for the future for him as a player, but for the Raptors as a team also?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God!
Couldn't agree more. And I mean, it's not like look at LaMelo this year. Second year LaMelo was an All-Star, right? So
true.
It's definitely like not out of the question with how these rookies develop and play. And I mean, the crazy thing with Scotty, man, that's actually unbelievable is that he is like the lowest usage guy in the starting 5, but he somehow finds a way to average 15. Like points.
Those offensive rebounds.
Yeah, points just come to him. The putback shots, like and like the 3 developing like this, the mid range. I can't even, bro. I am so excited to see him in the playoffs. I think we might just see something special out of him in the playoffs this year. Like I wouldn't be surprised.
We just might. Like if it wasn't for Pascal.
Yeah,
bro. Talking about him only right now.
Man, I've actually never been more excited. Okay, well, obviously, Kawhi Leonard playoff run. You don't even count that.
Yeah, but it's helping. It's helping kind of not forget about that, but it's helping kind of
get over that.
Not wish that you had that anymore and be happy with what you have now.
Right, man. Such a good way to put it. Like that feeling of when he leaves and he's in LA and we're like, oh no, what do we do?
Yeah, like how could we ever possibly get back to that?
And we feel it feels like we have our new guy who's like the foundation of that. It's like it feels like
and it's better in a way. It's better.
It is
because we
homegrown. We drafted him. We're confident. We know we have this kid for years to come, and like it's like, and we can take pride in like getting him. But what's cool is that I agree with you. Like that feeling I had of the Raptors after the title. It's such a high. You're on this euphoric like, damn, we won a championship. We might never see that again in our lives.
Crazy.
But you calm down, and then when it settles, you're there, and you're like, damn, we're champions. No one can take that away from us. We're still a fun team to watch, but there's something missing, and it just feels like we got it. And I couldn't agree more with you, man. I think like it's the homegrown, like the feeling of that we've blossomed this kid already in his first year to look like this, and to me, like you could easily make an argument he's the number one pick. Like I just think he's so good. I think he's so good. And I've had him in fantasy all year. I picked him up on the waiver before he was even thing. I traded him. I traded it back for him because I was like, I needed this kid back. And he's just like, he does everything, man. Like his stat, like just throughout the board, top to bottom. Like the guy's built for fantasy, bro. Too. Like that's the other thing. He's just like a fun fantasy player because you never know what to expect. One night he could get you like 17 rebounds. The next night he could have 4 threes. The next night he could have 2 steals, 3 blocks. The next night he could have 5 blocks. The next night he could just have 10 assists. Like he is the high field goal, hits his free throw. Like everything about him, I'm just like, yo, man, we hit the fucking jackpot. This is
home run for sure.
And it feels so good because as much as I don't want to count out Suggs or what he could become, but it's like imagine how dumb we'd be feeling if right now we saw this is what we passed up on. Like it's so nice to know this is just what we
unforgivable.
Yeah, we'd be like, this is what we passed up on, and it's similar to like when the Celtics got Tatum, at that 3rd spot or whatever it was, 3rd or 4th. I think it was third, right? And it's like, now we want this guy. We're good. We're good with this guy. This is the number 1 pick. Like they just kind of know that they're so confident in their choice, right? It feels similar to that, and like what we're seeing out of Scotty, that it's like, oh damn, okay, cool. That's what it is, eh? And just seeing Siakam, what a year for Siakam, right? And like I'm so excited to see Siakam in the playoffs.
Siakam's looking so great. Like that Philly game.
Oh man, I know.
Siakam showed out against Joel Embiid. Did you see that fake he at the end of the game?
Oh yeah,
when Joel Embiid just went flying.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. He's
goodness.
playing at an unbelievable level, and it's funny because as much as we're like Siakam trade rumors at the start of the year, and everyone's talking about, including myself, like what could the Raptors do with that contract? Does it fit the timeline? It's like, okay, well, when you see him performing like this, it's like that guy's not touchable.
He's earning it. He's earning that contract. There's no doubt.
And Fred VanVleet, man, that guy in the playoffs, like, ooh, that's gonna be scary. Like the Raptors are a scary team, bro. Fuck, they're a scary team. It's nice.
No, for sure.
Like, doesn't it just feel crazy good to be like, yo, like we're a team that teams are like, we do not want to play them.
like it does. Ooh. But for me, it's the fact that like all that is true, but our guys are so young. And there's literally, like, except for maybe Thaddeus Young, there's nobody on the team that hypothetically should get worse next year.
Yeah, yeah.
Facts. And
including guys like Fred. Even including guys like Fred, I could see it.
Yeah, of course. Well, Fred and Pascal, I think they're like 27 or 28. Like they still got a long run left. Mm-hmm. But a guy that I'm really, really starting to get excited about is Precious Achiuwa.
Oh yeah, career high threes the other night.
Yeah, he's turning into a player that I did not see coming. Like I wasn't really sure what to expect from him anyways, but now I can see how, when we've been talking all year about, and I've been saying like, oh, I want Miles Turner, I want Mo Bamba, I want, like there's a big hole at center that we need to fill. Yeah, I'm not so sure anymore, because Precious is turning into, while he's not 7 foot or whatever, he's turning into the kind of center that we need on this team. And the fact that he's hitting threes and running the fast break and all that, like, oh man, and he's so young. Same thing with Precious, it's only his 2nd year.
Yep.
I mean, there's nowhere to go but up. It's going to be so much fun. All we have to do really in the offseason is tinker a little bit, get some better role players off the bench. But once we do that, oh my Lord, watch out. Watch out.
Couldn't agree more. So excited.
Sorry, man, but even like when we were playing Philly, right? And I don't know if you watched the game, but Philly went up really early. Like they went up, like I think like 15 points or 10 points, like super early, within like 2 minutes of the game. And then so that classic Raptor. I don't know how long not you, but like listeners, I don't know how long they've been Raptors fans, but that classic feeling you get in your stomach, like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go, another blowout. There we go. But what was I going to say? The way they came back. Oh, this is what I want to say. Philly looks really, really good, but their bench is not existent, and we have a shit bench. The Raptors bench is bad, but Phillies is worse.
Yeah.
Phillies is a lot worse.
Yeah.
And like Embiid is great. Harden's great. Once one of them goes or both of them go to the bench, and that's what happened in this game. We just come right back because the one thing the Raptors really have going for them is bench player or not bench player. Whatever lineup we use, it's very consistent.
Yeah, it's like a system. It feels like a system you're watching, right? Like
absolutely, it is.
Yeah, and that's I mean, to credit to Nick Nurse, man, like he runs it like a tight ship.
Definitely.
And
love Nick.
Yeah, he's like I think he is my favorite coach in the NBA. Like honestly, like, and I know I'm biased.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think who would. I mean,
like at this given point, there's probably
what do you mean by favorite?
I don't know, just like the way he runs his team, the way he he leads, the way he talks, the way he like plays his summer league games, like he coaches the summer league, like I don't know, just like everything about him, like he's
pretty cool.
He's a pretty cool guy, and like his story with like how he walked his way up the basketball chart, and just like how he's coached and how like just his journey, man, for like from like playing overseas and coaching overseas, doing like the whole player coach thing, and then like coming to win a title with Toronto, and being behind. Who did he replace? Dwayne Casey, right? But like,
Casey,
was he ever on the? He wasn't part of like the Jay Triano team, was he at one point?
No.
Okay, I was wondering if he was like any type of like coordinator or anything in there at any given point. But anyway, yeah, I mean, interesting to see with the Raptors in the playoffs, man. I actually can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Whoever we play, it's gonna be. The nice thing about it is that if like from the Raptors perspective, from my perspective, anyways, like it's like you're playing with house money now. You know what I mean? Like everything now is a bonus.
It's just gravy, right?
Absolutely,
it's just gravy. Because no one thought we'd be the fifth seed. People thought we'd be in the play-in. That's what they were expecting.
Most people didn't think we were going to be in the playoffs. Remember the over/under for Toronto? I think was like 37, 38.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy.
Well, it seems crazy now, but it didn't seem so crazy at the start of the year.
No, and especially
like even from me when I would be defending them, like even in the back of my mind, I'm saying, well, like, am I too much here? Like,
yeah, no, it's like no, it's and like honestly, I agree with you. It's hard to foresee Scotty being this good this early.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like as much as we knew Scotty was going to be good.
Yeah.
It was hard for anyone to see him being this good.
Absolutely. And the fact that we started the year without Pascal, and even there were question marks around Pascal too when he came back. What's he gonna do? How is he gonna do? But he's put all those questions to bed and then some.
Sure. Yeah. No. 100%. Gary Trent Jr. Like who would have saw this?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Gary Trent Jr. Like there's so many things that we couldn't have foreseen.
I was still upset at the start of the year. I still wanted Norman Powell.
I like Norman Powell, and okay. So you know what? Okay, that's actually one thing in the Clippers defense, like to the Clippers, like what I'm like, damn, man, that trade they did for Rocco, and did you see Rocco? I think it was like a week or two ago, 11 threes or something, ridiculous, and the defense.
Hey, let me tell you something. Whenever I played 2K or whatever, and because if I want to be the Clippers, because I really like the matchup of Kawhi and Paul George, I'll tell you not that I've done it so many times, but I think every time that I've done that team and I start a league or whatever, I always get Robert Covington to put right in between them.
That's so cool.
It's such a perfect fit.
It is. That was a great trade for them, man. That was a great trade for them. And Norman Powell.
Insane that they got the value they got.
I know. Unbelievable. And man, you know what? It's crazy, bro. But if Kawhi Leonard was healthy right now, oh my goodness, my West would look let me tell you, my West would look a little different.
I think they would be my pick.
I mean,
probably.
I mean, like, as much as I'm like, Phoenix, Dallas, Golden State, these teams are crazy. I'm like, bro, like, I could just see the Clippers taking any of those teams.
Well, it's the thing. Like for me, it's the way I feel about Kevin Durant in the East.
Sure.
I would feel that way about Kawhi in the West. It's a little different because I would still, especially this year, I would be like, well, I'm coming back from injury. I'm not gonna expect,
sure,
everything.
Right.
But I was kind of looking at KD that way last year, and he blew my expectations out of the water last year too. So
yeah.
It would be something if Kawhi was back. But next year, I think they're going to be. I think Clippers. Like I think that if you were to bet on the Clippers winning the title next year, I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah. And
And it might be a good year to do it.
yeah, you probably have pretty good odds from that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's mostly what I wanted to talk about. We went through, everything from the playoffs to play into awards. Now, we didn't really mention. We got into rookies, obviously, rookie of the year. But let's just end. Who do you think on the ending note here? As we're over the hour, but it's fine. I want your MVP and defensive player of the year before we go.
You know what? I'm glad you said that because there were a couple defensive player of the year, at least honorable mentions that we didn't say at all last week.
Cool. Let me hear them because.
And in no order here, but Marcus Smart, Jared Jackson Jr.
Oh yeah, good one. Both good, really good honorable mentions. I agree.
Even Bam Adebayo, but I don't think he's played enough.
Probably not played enough, but yeah, he's definitely looked really, really good after he came back from that hand injury or whatever it was.
And I think I'm forgetting somebody, but those I definitely want to shout out those guys. Because you said it even last week too. You're like, I think we're forgetting people.
Yeah, and you know what, you can't. Statistically, you're probably like, okay, but it's
you gotta watch.
You gotta watch games to see his impact on the court.
If Marcus Smart, can you imagine if he was like 6'10"?
Yeah, he'd be. Oh, I think he would have won multiple defensive player of the years by now. And then Jaren Jackson, obviously Memphis being that good and John missing that many games, and defensively, go look at his numbers. They've improved this year drastically. Yeah, for sure. And okay, so MVP, are you leaning Jokic after last night or Embiid? You got to go the night. You got to look at Embiid.
I think it's one of those two. Yeah, I really think. And honestly, these might be unexpected, but I almost feel like Joel Embiid deserves it more. And I'm not saying because of the stats or anything. It's really everything else because
what way he went through with Ben Simmons and all that.
Exactly. The way you start the year, not knowing what the hell you're looking at with Ben Simmons, and for him to literally put the team on his back and average what he's been averaging and carry the Sixers not only to a
winning record,
good record, but one of the best teams in the East.
Yeah. Better record than Denver too. Better record than Denver too.
I think. Probably, and I'm definitely more of a Jokic fan than I am an Embiid fan, but I think, and this is today. I just had this realization today, but I think Embiid probably deserves it a little more.
Yeah.
It's not by a lot, but that would be my pick.
Yeah, I agree with you, bro. I personally want Embiid to get it. I think and I think you have to consider, when you're looking at record being so close and statistically being so dominant.
Yeah.
It's like every other year. You got to ask yourself, okay, well, what's the narrative? What's happened this year versus what's happened last year? But I think you're right, man. Having to deal with that Ben Simmons drama at the beginning of the year and overcoming that, putting the team on his back, I think that warrants the MVP and a better record. It's not like we're out here saying Philly's losing. We can't give it to a team that's losing. They're sitting at the 4th spot. They're 49-31, and Embiid's been the reason for that. So. Yeah, I think I agree with you. I would go with Embiid this year for my pick.
Is he going to win the scoring title too?
I think he will. Yeah, I think he will. Now that LeBron stepped out, I think he's in first, and it's looking like he'll probably win it. So
LeBron can't win it because he hasn't played enough games?
I think LeBron had to play 2 more games, and he's bowed.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, he bowed out. He basically just said.
I thought he was bowing out because he wanted to seal it.
No, he's bowing out because I just don't think he cares. I think he's just and he's injured, but I think he's just what's the point of, I mean, he still averaged 30 a game. It's I don't think he cares about necessarily the scoring leader at this point of his career, but I was a little surprised too, but I think it's kind of a noble move.
Oh, did you lose me there?
No, I think we're good. I don't know what happened, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much all for this week's, but let's hopefully talk again next week. I think the play-in starts on Wednesday next week.
That's so awesome, man.
Yeah.
Finally.
And we'll be able to touch on that and what we see. So yeah, pretty excited, man. Playoffs, we'll continue to do it because there's gonna be a lot to touch on. And yeah, man, good show. I'll definitely talk to you later.
Let's go Raptors.
Go Raptors. Peace out, guys.